Hello class, welcome to Management 300 Principles of Management, Lesson 4. This week, your learning objectives. After you've completed this lesson, you should be able to explain how the firm's internal and external environment should be examined as part of the strategic management process. State the meaning and purpose of a firm's strategic intent and mission. Understand how the strategy formulation process helps the firm achieve its mission. Describe the issues that should be considered in strategy implementation. Understand how the outcomes of the strategic management process should be assessed. Explain the economic importance of entrepreneurship. Identify the key characteristics and skills of entrepreneurs. Recognize the basic ingredients needed to effectively start and manage an entrepreneurial venture. Differentiate among the legal forms of organizing an entrepreneurial venture. And identify the alternative forms of entrepreneurship, and describe innovation and demonstrate why it is important for business success. This week, you'll be reading chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 7 is strategic management, and 8 is on entrepreneurship and innovation. Be sure to review your course syllabus and assignments for any additional readings or videos. Also, you have the discussion questions this week. Reminder that you're required to do discussion questions 1 and 2. If you're in class, you do not need to do questions 3 or 4. Those are included in your participation grade for the attendance. But they are make-up assignments if you're absent or if you're a fully online student. Be sure to do all of the things I'm going to suggest here in this lesson to prepare you for the exam. Each week you have the discussions and a quiz, so reviewing these lectures and reviewing the chapter materials is a good way of preparing for the exams. So this week, the strategic management process takes you through and looks at that. First, step 1, analyze external and internal environments. Then step 2, define the strategic intent and mission of an organization. Step 3, formulate strategies to address that mission. Step 4, implement those strategies. And step 5, assess strategic outcomes. So it's always important that an organization have a clear sense of vision, mission, intent, and then all of its activities, processes, and so on should be designed to meet those goals. So formulating the strategies, implementing those strategies, and then assessing them at the end of that process. Strategic outcomes have both intended and unintended results. Higher profits, more focus on products and services, increased stock price. These are all intended results that lead to improvements for an organization. Whereas unintended results can be such things as lower customer responsiveness, higher costs, and improved productivity. So in assessing your strategic outcomes, be sure that that all the things that you're trying to do within the organization are leading to those intended consequences, and that you're addressing things that could lead to unintended consequences. So step 1 in this process of the strategic management process is to do a very common analysis called a SWOT analysis, examining an organization's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That I can't stress enough how important a SWOT analysis is. It's useful for business, but it's certainly a common thing that can be used in a lot of circumstances, including on the personal level, to try to improve your own personal situations and such. But yes, on the business level, a good SWOT analysis for an organization, looking at both the internal and external conditions within an organization, are very important. When examining the external environment, you want to look at the components of that, which includes scanning, monitoring, forecasting, and assessing. Looking at the scope of the general environment, the industry environment, strategic groups, and direct competitors are parts of the external environment, both the components and the scope. When scanning, you're doing an analysis of general environmental factors that may be relevant to the firm's future. When monitoring, you're observing environmental changes on a continuous basis to determine whether a clear trend is emerging. When forecasting, you're attempting to predict what will happen in the future. And when assessing, you're evaluating environmental data received to study the implications for the firm. The scope of external analysis looks at the general environment, demographic trends, economic trends and conditions, political and legal forces that could change the way your business is working, socio-cultural conditions, technological changes, and globalization, which is really impacting a lot these days. Scope of external analysis also will examine the industry environment, the threats of new entrants, the threats of substitute products potentially or replacements, suppliers, and intensity of rivalry among competitors are parts of that scope of an external analysis that you may need to do. Internal analysis, for the internal environment, you're going to look at two things: resource types and firm capabilities. Resource types are of two variants, tangible and intangible. A firm's capabilities are defined as functional or part of the value chain or potentially benchmarking conditions. The internal environment, tangible resources include things like financial and physical and worker relationships. Intangible resources include such things as your reputation, technology, and human capital. Your reputation is something you can't really put a price tag on, but is incredibly important to an organization's success. Again, technology changes so rapidly, it's hard sometimes to put a dollar figure on how much a technological change can impact your business. Analyzing the firm's capabilities, you're going to want to do a functional analysis, a value chain analysis, and create benchmarks for meeting certain goals along the way. Functional analysis will include things like corporate management, information management, research and development, manufacturing, product design, marketing, sales, and distribution. In step 2, looking at strategic intent and mission, the two categories, intent, will look at how a firm would like to use its resources, capabilities, and core competencies, where the mission is used to determine the firm's external focus on products and markets. Step 3 in the strategic management process looks at strategy formulation. Two levels looked at there: corporate level, looking at portfolio analysis, diversification type, diversification process, and then on the business unit level, looking at cost leadership and differentiation strategies. Strategy formulation on the corporate level, you might look at an analysis matrix or a growth share mix. Some examples here: McKinsey's General Electric portfolio analysis, you're going to want to look at it in more detail. Boston Consulting Group has a model that you can use that looks at things like the annual real rate of market growth and the relative market share of an organization. And like many of the graphs that we look at, the left bar looks at low to high, and the other looks at high and low on the horizontal divide there. You're looking for the ideal conditions to decide on how you want to do things. Types of diversification include concentration strategy, vertical integration strategy, concentric diversification strategy, and conglomerate diversification. You're going to want to make sure you understand those terms. Process of diversification looks at things like acquisition and restructuring strategies and international strategy. On the business level strategy, you're looking at cost leadership and differentiation. Step 4 looks at strategy implementation. We have a number of things to look at here. You're going to want to look at the strategic leadership level, organizational controls, organizational structures, cooperative strategies, global strategies, human resource strategies, and corporate entrepreneurship and innovation strategies. Step 5 is going to look at strategic outcomes, observe results versus expectations of stock owners, meeting desires of multiple constituencies who are affected by a firm's actions, and then assessing short-term and long-term goals. So in essence, that's Chapter 7. Be sure to review each of the learning objectives again and make sure you understand each pretty well. The next chapter on entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the process of creating a business enterprise capable in entering new and established markets. Skills for managing entrepreneurial ventures include things like opportunity recognition, right? It's important that you recognize an opportunity when you see it, otherwise it could pass you by. Looking at entrepreneurial implementation skills as well as networking skills, right? It is very much who you know and how you work with people. Myths about entrepreneurs include such ideas that entrepreneurs are born, not made. It's not necessary to have access to money to become an entrepreneur. No, it helps. Most entrepreneurs are young people under the ages of 30, and entrepreneurs become successful on their first venture. All of these are very significant myths. In fact, in most cases, entrepreneurs can be taught how to be entrepreneurial. What are the characteristics of a good entrepreneur? It does indeed help to have good contacts so that you have someone backing you. And many entrepreneurs are actually start out much older because they're starting later in life after they've been successful in much of their other careers, and a lot of failures before success. The importance of entrepreneurship includes job creation. It's a very important function in our market today. Leads to innovation in technologies and in ways of doing things and lots of other ways. It's also opportunities for diverse people around the world to have access to things that they didn't previously have access to. Entrepreneurial characteristics include such things as a high need for achievement, an internal locus of control, meaning that the individual is driven rather than motivated by external achievement goals and such. They're driven very much internally. They are willing to take risks, and they tend to be very self-confident. Entrepreneurial skills include negotiation skills, networking skills, and leadership skills. Personal networks based on relationships between entrepreneur and other entrepreneurs, suppliers, creditors, investors, friends, former professors, and others. Right? It's important to develop your personal networks to increase your opportunities as an entrepreneur. Business network, create a set of alliances forged with other businesses to achieve mutually beneficial goals. Dell Computers, for example, started by Michael Dell, started when he was a freshman at the University of Texas at Austin. He sold $181,000 of equipment in 3 months from his dorm room. 2 years later, the company reached $34 million in sales. Starting and managing, essentially you want to generate an idea, develop a business plan. It's a very useful thing to have a good business plan. Select an appropriate type of legal structure, obtain financing, and deal with expansion and growth. Entrepreneurs often fail because they lack the capital to make the venture go through. They have a poor knowledge of the market, perhaps, faulty product design, human resource problems. Either they have too many people or not enough, and poor understanding of the competition. A business plan is again a very important document to have. It fleshes out with an introduction, executive summary, an industry analysis, description of venture, production plan, marketing plan, organizational plan, assessment of risks, and financial plan, and appendix that documents all those things. This business plan becomes a useful tool for engaging potential investors in your business. When selecting a business type, you're going to want potentially look at being a self-proprietor. I mean, most people want to own their own business, but there are downsides to being a self-proprietor. Partnerships are often common, and then corporations are among the most common. Advantages to a partnership includes the ease of formation, the direct share of profits, division of labor and management. There's more capital potentially, and less government control and regulation. The disadvantage is unlimited liability for debt. Same thing as a self-proprietorship. If anything goes wrong with your business, you're now liable for everything. Limited continuity, difficulty potentially obtaining capital, partners responsible for the other's actions, and it potentially leads to conflict. Corporations, advantages include owner's liability for debt is limited to their investment. The ease of raising large amounts of capital. Investors are more likely to invest in a corporation than in a self-proprietorship or a partnership. Ease of transfer of ownership through sale of stock, and a life of enterprise distinct from the owners. You have separate taxes. You have all these different things that keep you away from the liabilities associated with private business. Disadvantages: there are lots of government regulations associated with corporations, tend to have high incorporation fees, so the startup costs are higher. Corporate capital, profits, dividends, and salaries double taxed, right? Because you have to pay your own individual taxes on your income. And then activities are limited to those stated in the charter. Sources of financial resources: debt financing and equity financing. Equity financing might be venture capitalists or public offerings. An important concern as an entrepreneur is to manage growth. Too much growth can put an unbearable strain on operation of a business. You won't be able to keep up with what it is that you're trying to accomplish, which would ultimately potentially affect your reputation. Alternative forms of entrepreneurship include such things as intrapreneurship, where large organizations have smaller organizations built into them that are innovative and such. Spin-offs and franchises are two others. Innovation means basically doing something differently. The wheel of innovation includes imagining, designing, experimenting, assessing, and scaling. And that kind of summarizes chapters 7 and 8 and the materials you need for being successful on this week's exam. Be sure that you review all the learning objectives and all the terms and all the graphs and everything else within the chapters to ensure your success. And I hope you enjoyed this video.